Hey, Stoic warrior, let me ask you something. How much of your life have you wasted trying to prove yourself to people who didn't even deserve an explanation? You explain, you defend, you chase, thinking that if you just say the right words, they'll finally respect you, finally understand you, finally see your worth. But here's the truth. The more you explain, the less they listen. The more you chase, the more they run. And the more you beg, the more of your power you give away. That's why silence, my friend, is not weakness. Silence is the ultimate Stoic weapon. It's the invisible armor that protects your dignity, your peace, and your inner strength. Listen carefully. When you go silent, you don't just walk away from the noise, you reclaim yourself. And in that quiet, the people who underestimated you finally realize they lost something far greater than they ever imagined. This isn't about being cold. This isn't about ignoring people out of spite. This is about learning that your worth was never in their recognition. It was always in your self-respect. That's the power of silence. And today, we're going to unlock it. Welcome to Stoic Dating Code, the place where modern struggles meet timeless wisdom. If you're tired of chasing, tired of explaining, tired of feeling like your peace depends on someone else's attention, then you're in the right place. I want you to do me a small favor before we go further. Hit the subscribe button right now so you never miss another lesson in Stoic strength. Because one video, one idea, could be the shift that changes how you carry yourself for the rest of your life. Now, let me be clear. This is not just a talk about staying quiet. This is about 6 profound truths that will show you why silence is a superpower and why those who master it never beg, never chase, and never over-explain themselves. You'll see how silence makes your absence louder than words. You'll see how it helps you hear your own truth more clearly than ever before. You'll see how it gives you closure without begging for it, how it exposes what people try to hide, and how it becomes the highest form of confidence. And by the end, you'll understand why walking away in silence teaches lessons no argument ever could. So don't just listen, lean in. Feel these words. Because your silence, when practiced with discipline and self-respect, will not only change how others see you, it will transform how you see yourself. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is my power. Say it, write it, own it. Because today, we begin not with noise, not with begging, not with chasing. We begin with stillness. And in that stillness, you'll discover the kind of strength that no one can take away. Let's start with the first truth. Silence makes them feel your absence more than they ever valued your presence. Think about it. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop chasing, when you stop trying to prove your worth through words, suddenly something strange happens. They begin to notice. Not because you shouted, not because you begged, but because your absence became louder than any message you could have sent. Have you ever been ghosted, disrespected, given the cold shoulder by someone you cared about? Your instincts probably screamed, say something, defend yourself, show them you matter. So you write a long text, pour your heart into paragraphs, hit send, and then nothing. No response, just silence on their end. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you talk, the less they listen. The more you chase, the more they run. The more you explain, the less they value your words. But the moment you stop, the moment you go silent, they're forced to face something deeper than your words. They're forced to face themselves. See, silence holds up a mirror. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg. It simply says, I saw what you did. I felt how you treated me, but I respect myself too much to explain it to you. That kind of silence isn't ego, it's clarity. Because if they cared, they would ask. If they respected you, they would reach out. If they were mature enough, they wouldn't need a paragraph to understand your worth. So instead of wasting energy trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves, you let your absence do the talking. And in that absence, your power returns. Here's a story you might recognize. A man was dating a woman who constantly played games. Warm one day, cold the next. She would ignore his texts, disappear for hours, then reappear with excuses. At first, he chased. He explained himself. He begged for clarity. But the more he explained, the more she pulled away. Finally, one day, he stopped. No long texts, no chasing, just silence. And you know what happened? Her energy changed. She noticed his absence. She started asking questions. Why isn't he reacting? Why didn't he reply? Did he stop caring? That's the paradox of silence. When you stop trying to convince them, they start convincing themselves. When you stop filling the space with words, they start feeling the emptiness of your absence. Albert Hubbard once said, "He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words." That's the essence of Stoicism. Silence confuses those who expected you to beg. It unsettles those who thought they had control. It forces people to confront the reality they were trying to avoid. And listen, your silence will trigger them. It will confuse them. It will make them uncomfortable. But that's the point, because silence speaks the one truth they cannot ignore. You don't owe them an explanation, not anymore. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, stop. Don't give away your power in long paragraphs. Don't waste your energy proving yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. Instead, lean into silence. Let them feel the loss of your voice. Let them wonder why the noise disappeared. Let them sit with the weight of your absence. And while they wrestle with their thoughts, you reclaim your peace. You step back into your own power, and you remind yourself of this simple Stoic truth. Silence is not emptiness. It's discipline. It's self-respect. It's strength. Before we move to the next truth, I want you to pause for a moment. If this lesson already resonates with you, hit the like button right now. It's a small action, but it tells me this message is reaching the right people, Stoic warriors like you. And drop this affirmation in the comments below. My absence speaks louder than my words. Because when you believe that, when you practice that, you'll never chase, beg, or over-explain yourself again. The second truth is this: when you stay silent, you don't just quiet the world. You hear the truth louder, your truth. The world we live in is noisy. Everyone has an opinion. Friends want to tell you what to do. Social media shouts advice you never asked for. And the person who hurt you, they usually say nothing at all. So what do most people do when they're in pain? They run to others for answers. They call 5 friends. They scroll endlessly on Instagram or TikTok. They replay the conversation 100 times in their head, trying to find meaning in the chaos. But here's what the Stoic does differently. He goes silent. Not because he doesn't feel the pain, not because he doesn't care, but because he knows real answers don't come from noise. They come from stillness. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's the secret. When you go silent, your mind begins to calm, and when the mind calms, the truth rises. You start hearing things like, "They never respected me. I just didn't want to admit it. I'm not angry because they left. I'm angry because I stayed too long. I don't need their closure. I need my peace." These truths don't arrive in text messages. They don't come in long arguments. They show up in the quiet hours when your voice is no longer reaching outward but inward. Think about this. When you're hurt, your emotions scream. Chase them. Explain yourself. Prove your worth. But when you go silent, your values whisper. Hold your dignity, protect your peace, let them go. That's why Stoics practiced what I call sacred stillness. They didn't rush decisions in anger. They didn't react to every insult. They paused. They reflected. They waited for the storm inside to settle before acting. Modern society teaches the opposite. Speak your truth. Don't let anyone disrespect you. Say what's on your mind. But here's the truth people miss. Respect isn't gained by shouting louder. It's gained by being grounded in silence when everyone else is spiraling in noise. When you're quiet, you see things more clearly. You notice patterns others miss. You stop asking, do they care? Because their actions already show you. You stop wondering, do I matter? Because deep down, you know your worth doesn't depend on them. Silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It's active listening to the only voice that truly matters, your own. Here's a small story. A man was betrayed by his closest friend. Everyone told him to confront, to fight, to demand an apology, but he didn't. He went silent. For weeks, he said nothing. At first, the silence hurt. He wanted to scream. He wanted to expose the betrayal. But in the stillness, something changed. He realized that what hurt most wasn't his friend's betrayal. It was his own refusal to let go. That's the gift of silence. It doesn't just reveal the truth about them. It reveals the truth about you. And listen carefully. This truth is liberating. Because once you know the real source of your pain, you stop blaming them and you start healing yourself. You stop depending on their words to set you free. You give yourself that freedom in silence. So the next time you feel lost, don't rush to post your feelings online. Don't flood your friends with late-night calls. Don't send a desperate message hoping someone else will fix what's broken inside. Instead, go silent. Sit with your thoughts. Let the storm pass. And trust that in the stillness, the truth will rise. And before we move to the next lesson, let me remind you, if this message is helping you see yourself more clearly, share it with someone you care about. Because sometimes, the greatest gift you can give is not advice, not comfort, not words, but the reminder that silence itself holds the answers we seek. So pause now, breathe, and drop this affirmation in the comments. In silence, I hear my truth. Because when you do, you'll start trusting your inner voice more than the noise of the world, and that, my friend, is where real power begins. Let's talk about the third truth. Begging for closure is not strength, it's self-betrayal. Everyone craves closure. That final conversation, that one honest explanation, that neat little ending that makes sense of the pain. But here's the brutal truth. If someone truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. They would give it freely, with respect. And if they don't, your silence is the closure. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And in this case, it means stop chasing words from people who already showed you who they are. Here's the cycle most people get trapped in. 1. They hurt you. 2. You demand answers. 3. They respond with avoidance, coldness, or worse, manipulation. 4. You feel even more broken. And the cycle repeats, until one day you realize, closure is not something they give you. It's something you give yourself when you finally go silent and walk away. Think about it. Every time you write a long message, hoping they'll see your worth, you're abandoning yourself. Every time you rehearse the perfect speech, you're putting your healing in their hands. Every time you say, "I just need one last conversation," you're delaying the peace you could already choose in silence. That's not strength. That's surrendering your dignity to someone who already proved they don't deserve it. Let me give you an example. A woman was left by her partner without warning. No explanation, no goodbye, just distance. Her first instinct was to call, to text, to beg for clarity. But the more she begged, the colder he became. Then one day, she stopped. She deleted the unsent letters. She stopped stalking his social media. She stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. And in that silence, something shifted. She realized closure wasn't in his words. It was in her decision to move on. That's the essence of Stoicism. You stop expecting people to clean up the mess they made. You stop looking outward for peace. You embody your values, self-respect, discipline, and dignity. Yes, the pain is real. But asking the one who hurt you to explain why they hurt you is like asking a storm why it rained. It doesn't care, it doesn't answer, and waiting for it keeps you stuck in the storm. So remember this: closure is not a conversation. Closure is a choice. It's the day you stop knocking on a locked door. It's the moment you stop performing for someone who already decided not to clap. It's when you say, without a word, "My silence is my goodbye." And I know it's hard, because your ego whispers, "Make them understand, prove you were the good one, show them your worth." But that's the trap. That's the endless loop of self-abandonment. The Stoic response is different. You accept reality. You stop explaining storms to people who live indoors. You stop bleeding in front of people who can't handle wounds. And you learn that peace isn't given, it's claimed. Now let me speak directly to you. If you've ever begged for closure, if you've ever stayed awake rehearsing that perfect message, I want you to know this. You're not weak, you're human, but you also have a choice. And today can be the moment you take your power back. If this lesson hits home, if you feel that shift inside you right now, then don't just sit with it. Subscribe to Stoic Dating Code today, because this channel isn't just content, it's a space for you to grow stronger, wiser, and freer from the patterns that kept you trapped. And comment these words below: "My silence is my closure." Say it until you believe it, because when you do, you'll never beg again for something that was always yours to choose. Here's the fourth truth. Silence exposes what words try to hide. Words are powerful. But let's be honest, words can lie. People say things they don't mean. They apologize without sincerity. They promise without intention. That's why Stoics didn't put their trust in speeches. They trusted actions. Because actions reveal reality in ways words never can. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." And nothing makes actions louder than silence. When you stop talking, when you stop over-explaining, when you withdraw your words, masks begin to fall. Think about it. When you keep talking, you give others a shield. They can hide behind their justifications. They can cover their true intentions with smooth explanations. They can string you along with half-truths. But when you go silent, that shield disappears. Suddenly, their actions have nowhere to hide. Their patterns come into full view. Let me give you a real example. A man kept forgiving his friend's broken promises. Every time the friend failed him, he listened to excuses. "I was busy. I forgot. I didn't mean to." And each time, the man believed the words. Until one day he stopped responding. He went silent. And in that silence, he noticed the pattern. His friend never showed up, no matter the excuse. And he realized it was never about words. It was about priorities. That's the power of silence. It strips away illusions. It forces you to see what's real, not what's said. Now here's what happens when you go silent with someone who mistreated you. The one who truly values you will feel your absence and reach out with honesty. The one who only used you will vanish because you were never valuable to them beyond what you gave. The one who tried to manipulate you will grow angry, not because you hurt them, but because your silence ended their control. That's why silence is terrifying for manipulators. They thrive on your reactions. They feed off your explanations. They control you through words. But when you stop giving them that energy, they're left exposed. Silence doesn't argue. It doesn't defend. It doesn't negotiate. It simply watches. And in that stillness, truth is revealed. You see who checks in when you're quiet. You see who disappears when you stop giving. You see who grows frustrated when they can't provoke a reaction. That's not cruelty. It's clarity. Because silence reveals who people truly are when they can't use words to cover themselves. Let me remind you of something important. Sometimes silence hurts more than confrontation. Because people can dismiss your words, but they cannot dismiss your absence. They can argue with your opinions, but they cannot argue with your stillness. So instead of trying to force someone to prove themselves with words, try silence. Instead of demanding, "Tell me you care," watch what they do when you stop reaching out. Instead of chasing their explanations, watch how they behave when there's nothing left to explain. That's how Stoics lived. Not judgmental, but observant. Not reactive, but discerning. Not loud, but deeply aware. And that's how you learn to trust energy over explanations, patterns over promises, reality over rhetoric. Now I want you to pause. Think of someone in your life right now who has been giving you more words than actions. What would happen if you stopped explaining, stopped chasing, stopped asking, and just went silent? What would be revealed? The answer might hurt, but it will set you free. Because silence doesn't just protect your dignity, it opens your eyes. So drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence reveals the truth. Say it with conviction, because once you believe it, you'll never again be blinded by sweet words, hiding empty actions. The fifth truth is this: not explaining yourself is the highest form of confidence. Let's be honest. Being misunderstood hurts. Someone twists your intentions. They question your character. They paint a version of you that doesn't match reality. And what's your first instinct? To defend yourself, to clear your name, to explain, and over-explain until they finally get it. But here's the problem. The more you explain, the less powerful you become. Because explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you isn't confidence, it's insecurity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit." Think about that. Every time you try to convince someone of your worth, you're giving away precious energy to people who have no intention of seeing you clearly. That's not power. That's dependence. The man who doesn't explain himself isn't arrogant. He's at peace, because he knows his intentions are clean. He knows his actions align with his values, and he knows his worth doesn't need a translation for those who choose not to listen. That's real confidence. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's calm, rooted, unshakable. Here's a story to illustrate. There was a man accused of being selfish because he set boundaries. He stopped over giving, and people around him didn't like it. They called him cold, distant, even arrogant. At first, he felt the urge to explain, to say, "I'm not selfish, I'm just protecting my peace." But then he stopped. He realized that people who truly cared would respect his boundaries without needing an essay. And the ones who didn't, well, they were never really on his side to begin with. That's what not explaining does. It filters your circle. It reveals who respects you without conditions, and who only stays as long as you play small. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean you never clarify anything in life. It doesn't mean you stonewall loved ones who genuinely care. It means you stop wasting energy explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Because here's the truth most people avoid. Some people don't want to understand you. They want to control how you're perceived. And the moment your silence breaks their illusion, they'll get angry. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped playing their game. So instead of defending yourself, just live your truth. Instead of chasing approval, let your energy speak for you. Instead of justifying your choices, let your actions show what words never could. And yes, this kind of confidence will make some people uncomfortable. It will push manipulators away. It will scare off those who only valued you for what you gave. But the ones who remain, they will respect you deeply because you've shown them that your worth doesn't beg for recognition. Now I want to challenge you directly. The next time someone misunderstands you, resist the urge to explain. Take a breath, go silent, and remind yourself, my peace doesn't depend on their approval. That's real confidence. It's not about winning arguments. It's about refusing to fight battles that drain your soul. It's about trusting yourself enough to stay still while others make noise. And if this truth resonates with you, I want you to pause and take action right now. Hit the like button, not for me, but as a declaration to yourself that from today you choose confidence over explanation. Then drop this affirmation in the comments. I don't explain, I embody. Because once you believe that, you'll discover a level of confidence most people never touch, the kind of confidence that makes you untouchable. The sixth and final truth is this: your detachment and silence is what teaches them the lesson. There's something uniquely powerful about walking away, not with anger, not with drama, not with slammed doors, but with quiet detachment. You don't send a final message filled with pain. You don't argue until your throat is dry. You don't beg them to see your worth one last time. You simply leave, and in that silence, a lesson begins that no amount of words could ever teach. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That's exactly what happens when you go silent. Your absence begins to live in their mind. They replay memories. They question themselves. They wonder why your voice is gone. When you stop responding, they're left alone with their own guilt, their own actions, their own choices. And that quiet echo of your absence becomes louder than any argument you could have made. See, most people expect you to react. They expect you to chase. They expect you to fight for closure, to break down, to return eventually. But when you don't, when you detach with silence, you shatter their expectations. And that scares them more than anything else. Because suddenly they realize they no longer have access to your energy. They no longer control your emotions. They no longer get to feed off your reactions. That's when the lesson hits. Because people rarely learn from words. They learn from distance. They don't change when you scream, "Respect me." They change, if they ever do, when your absence shows them what they've lost. And here's the truth you need to hear. Even if they never change, even if they never learn, the silence wasn't for them, it was for you. You learned that peace doesn't need permission. You learned that not everyone deserves an explanation. You learned that silence isn't just strength, it's healing. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your soul to let it stay in places where it's being neglected. It means you refuse to keep watering dead plants, no matter how much you once loved the garden. That's why Stoics didn't seek revenge. They didn't beg for justice. They didn't chase apologies. They let silence speak, because silence carries a dignity no insult can touch, a strength no manipulation can shake, and a clarity no argument can blur. So let me ask you, who in your life have you been trying to teach with words? Who have you been trying to convince, trying to change, trying to wake up with endless explanations? Stop. Go silent. Detach. Let your absence speak the final truth. And while they wrestle with their thoughts, you'll be free, walking forward with your peace intact. Now, if you've made it this far, it means you're ready for this shift. You feel it inside you, that quiet realization that you don't need to beg, chase, or explain to be worthy. That silence isn't weakness, it's power. So before we end, I want you to take one last action. Comment this affirmation right now. My silence is my last word and my strongest lesson. Because that's what this journey has been about. Not revenge, not pride, but dignity, discipline, and a level of self-respect that no one can take from you. Thank you for listening, warrior. If this message touched your heart, like it right now. Share it with someone who needs the reminder. And make sure you subscribe to Stoic Dating Code for more timeless truths every single week. And remember, your silence doesn't mean emptiness. It means you've chosen peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, dignity over desperation. And that silence, carried with strength, will always speak louder than words.